Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Consumer Awareness Foundation online podcast. Today we're going to be diving into a topic that I think hits really close to home for a lot of people. We're talking about debt relief. And specifically, we're going to be kind of unpacking all those offers that sound a little too good to be true. The ones that promise to wipe away your worries for a small fee?
Yeah, the catch is that small fee can often be a pretty significant percentage of your total debt, sometimes even like 20 to 30%. It's kind of like a hidden cost they hope you won't really notice until it's too late.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. There are a lot of different ways people try to kind of manage debt. So let's say I'm thinking about debt settlement. How does that even work, and where do these hidden fees kind of pop up?
So with debt settlement, you basically stop paying your creditors directly and you start putting money into a third-party account. Then the debt settlement company comes in and negotiates with your creditors to try and get them to accept a lower payoff amount.
Okay, so that sounds simple enough. What's the problem?
Well, the problem is you're not just paying for the negotiation service. You've got that settlement fee, which, like we said, can be anywhere from 14 to 30% of the debt that they manage to settle. And then a lot of these companies also tack on monthly fees for managing that third-party account.
So I'm paying them to hold my own money. Is there anything else I'm missing?
Oh, yeah. There's also the tax implications. So any debt that's forgiven through settlement, the IRS might actually consider that as income, which means you could end up with a tax bill on top of everything else.
Ouch. So you're dealing with fees, taxes, and I'm guessing my credit probably takes a hit too, right?
Exactly. Defaults and settlements, they can stay on your credit report for up to 7 years. And that can make it harder to get loans or even rent an apartment in the future. And then on top of that, you've got late fees that can just keep piling up while you're not making those payments.
So it sounds like debt settlement's a little bit of a gamble. Is there anything out there that's a little less, well, terrifying?
Yeah, there are definitely other options that are worth looking into, like credit counseling and debt management plans or DMPs.
Okay, now I've heard of credit counseling, but how is a DMP different?
So credit counseling agencies, a lot of times they'll give you a free consultation to kind of help you analyze your debt.
Hmm.
And they can also help set up a DMP, which basically consolidates your debts. They might be able to negotiate lower interest rates. And then it streamlines your payments. You send one payment to the agency and then they distribute it to all your creditors.
So it's like having someone else handle all the juggling for you. Are there any fees involved with that?
Most credit counseling services are free, but there might be a small setup fee for the DMP, usually less than $100. And then there could be a monthly fee too. But it usually stays below $75. So it's much more manageable than those settlement fees we were talking about.
That's a relief. Does signing up for a DMP hurt my credit score at all?
The DMP itself doesn't directly impact your score, but if you have to close any credit cards to enroll, that could lower your score. And lenders might also look at accounts that are in DMPs a little differently.
Okay, so there's still some trade-offs to think about. Before we dive into some other options, for anyone who's feeling a little overwhelmed right now, I want to remind you that you can get more information at DIY-debtrelief.com.
Absolutely. And while you're there, be sure to check out the free book, Forgive and Forget: How to Wipe Out Your Credit Card Debt. It's full of helpful tips for taking control of your finances.
All right, so back to debt relief options. What about consolidation or refinancing? Are those any good?
Those can be solid strategies if you use them wisely. Debt consolidation usually means getting a personal loan to pay off your high interest debts. So you're basically combining everything into one loan with hopefully a lower interest rate. Refinancing is similar, but it's usually for a single debt like mortgage or something.
So they're both kind of aiming to make my debt more manageable, but what are the hidden costs there?
Well, personal loans, they come with interest rates and origination fees, which can be anywhere from 1 to 6% of the loan amount, sometimes even more depending on your credit score. And then with balance transfer cards, you might have annual fees, transfer fees, and eventually those tempting 0% APR periods are going to end.
So it's kind of a balancing act between the potential savings and those upfront costs. Is there anything else out there that people might be overlooking?
Yeah, there's a whole new world of debt payoff apps that are popping up, and some of them can be really helpful.
Debt payoff apps. Those sound kind of intriguing. What do they do?
So they're basically designed to make it easier to manage and pay off your debt. Some of them are like debt planners,
Hmm.
like Undebt.ai or Debt Payoff Planner, and they'll help you create a personalized plan, using algorithms to figure out the most efficient way to tackle your debt.
So it's like having a little digital debt advisor in your pocket. What other types of apps are there?
There are also roundup apps like Capital or Bright Money, and those link to your bank accounts or credit cards. And every time you make a purchase, they'll round it up to the nearest dollar and then put that spare change into a savings account. So you're kind of automatically chipping away at your debt without even thinking about it.
That's pretty sneaky. I like it.
Mm.
What do these apps cost, though?
Some of them are totally free, like Debt Payoff Assistant. Others have like premium features that you can pay for, like a monthly or annual fee. So for instance, Undebt, it has a premium version for $12 a year. And Debt Payoff Planners Premium is just $2 a month. Capital ranges from $3 to $12 a month after a free trial. And then Bright Money is either $10 a month or $89 for the whole year.
Okay, so it sounds like there's something out there for every budget. But what if things are really bad? What if I'm like considering something drastic like bankruptcy?
Well, bankruptcy should definitely be a last resort, but it's still important to understand how it works. It's basically a legal process that can help you discharge your debts if you truly can't afford to repay them. There are two main types, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13.
Okay, what's the difference?
So with Chapter 7, you basically sell most of your assets to pay off your creditors. Certain assets might be protected, though, depending on the state you live in, like your home, for example. With Chapter 13, you get to keep your assets. But you have to repay your debts over a period of 3 to 5 years through a court-approved plan.
Okay, both of those sound pretty intense. Are there costs associated with bankruptcy?
Yeah, unfortunately there are. You've got court costs, which can be over $300 just for filing fees. And then you might also have attorney's fees, which can range from $1,000 to $2,000 or even more. Some courts do offer fee waivers or payment plans, though. And there are also legal aid clinics that can be really helpful for people who can't afford to hire an attorney.
And of course, bankruptcy is going to hit my credit score pretty hard too, right?
Yeah, it can stay on your credit report for up to 10 years, which can make it difficult to get loans
Yeah.
or even rent an apartment. And then there's also the social stigma that comes along with it, which can be hard to deal with.
It sounds like bankruptcy is something you definitely want to avoid.
Absolutely. It should only be considered after you've exhausted all other options.
So many things to think about. It's kind of overwhelming. Any advice for someone who's just feeling lost in all of this?
Well, don't panic. I think a good first step is to talk to a reputable credit counseling agency. They can offer free consultations to assess your situation and kind of suggest the best path forward.
Okay, that makes sense. How do I know if I'm dealing with a reputable agency, though?
I would look for agencies that are accredited by the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, or NFCC, or the Financial Counseling Association of America, that's the FCAA. Those organizations have to adhere to pretty strict ethical standards.
Okay, that's good to know. What are some other things I could do to kind of get my debt under control?
Well, creating a budget is crucial. That'll help you see where your money's going, identify areas where you can cut back, and then free up some funds to start paying down your debt. And don't be afraid to negotiate with your creditors. You might be surprised how willing they are to work with you.
Okay, that's good advice. Anything else people tend to overlook? You know, it's so easy to just kind of fall into that trap of using credit cards for everyday expenses or only making the minimum payments. Are those signs that I need to be looking at some of these debt relief options?
Yeah, those are definitely some red flags, that your debt might be getting a little out of control. And it's important to address it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of people struggle with debt.
Yeah.
And it can feel really isolating.
You're absolutely right. But it's important to remember that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And there are steps you can take to regain control.
So we've talked about a lot of different strategies today. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are trying to navigate this whole world of debt relief?
Well, my biggest piece of advice would be to be really wary of companies that make promises that sound too good to be true. Like if they guarantee that they can eliminate all your debt overnight or for pennies on the dollar, it's probably a scam.
So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. What other red flags should people be watching out for?
Be cautious of companies that demand upfront fees before they've actually provided any services. Legitimate companies usually charge fees after they've successfully negotiated with your creditors.
Okay, that makes sense. And research is key, right?
Absolutely. Before you sign anything, check out the company's reputation with the Better Business Bureau. And you can read online reviews to see what other people's experiences have been.
So it's like checking those online reviews before you book a hotel or try a new restaurant.
Exactly. You want to know what you're getting into.
For sure.
And if you're ever unsure about a company's legitimacy, it's always best to err on the side of caution.
All right, so great advice. Any last tips for our listeners who are feeling overwhelmed by debt?
Just take a deep breath and remember that there are resources out there to help. Organizations like the Federal Trade Commission And the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they offer a lot of valuable information. And they can help you understand your rights as a consumer.
Awesome. And for those who want a more practical guide to tackling credit card debt, don't forget about the free book offer from DIY-debtrelief.com. Forgive and Forget: How to Wipe Out Your Credit Card Debt.
Yeah, it's full of actionable strategies that can make a real difference.
Well, this has been an incredibly informative deep dive into the world of debt relief. Thanks for joining us and sharing your expertise.
My pleasure. And remember, knowledge is power when it comes to managing your finances.
That's right. Thanks for listening to the Consumer Awareness Foundation online podcast. We hope this episode has empowered you to make informed decisions about your debt and to avoid those sneaky scams.
And for more information and resources, be sure to visit DIY-debtrelief.com.
Until next time, stay informed and stay financially savvy.